Hello and welcome to Magic Rabbits,
a podcast exploring the outermost edges of the music business that never was.
Celebrating the masses who never quite made Glastonbury but had the best of times on the journey.
Here's to every one of us.
Well, hello and welcome to what I think is probably episode 7 of my...
Is it 7?
I think so. My counting works.
Yeah.
So, and this week we're going to be dealing with a song that I know you're not massively fond of, but I really like, and it's one of yours, Tim. This is a song called The Things We Said in Bed that we used to sing with the Temple Men. So that was prior to Boat Thief, and this was part of our set quite regularly. I think we sang this pretty much from the beginning of when we started playing together all the way through. It was a regular in our live sets, and we've just re-recorded it. I think very successfully. I really like it. But you really don't like this song, and I'm interested in exploring. Well, tell us about the song first.
Well, the song's written from the point of view of somebody that is in a relationship, and obviously the things that you say in bed to each other are very different to things that you say outside of bed.
The things we said outside of bed. That's the follow-up song.
Yeah, that should have been on the B-side. Things outside of bed. But no, it's, the intimate stuff you say is very different, and the intimate and the feelings that you have with each other, obviously in those situations, can sometimes be very difficult to replicate outside of that. But so it's that kind of thing. That's not the reason I don't like the song. Is because it was written in a style, and we played it in a style that I wasn't quite happy with, kind of almost like a Blue-Eyed Soul kind of thing, and that's just not me. So I don't really know why it ever got past the sort of,
See, that's interesting. I never saw it in that way. You said that now for the first time. I didn't hear it in that way. It's bizarre what you can hear in things that maybe are perceived and aren't as clear as...
Well, it was...
Because I heard it as like a pop... For me, this was more like a Police song or something like that. It was like a really a nice little kind of, sort of plodding, melodic pop song, and I loved it for that reason, and I thought it worked really well with the Temple Men and what we were about and everything.
But when people listen to it at the end of this podcast, because we'll slot it in at the end, so when they listen to it, they'll see it's in a different form now than what it used to be. So we never recorded it when we were with the Temple Men, so this is the first time it's actually been recorded, which is quite an interesting experience, to be honest, because it gave me the opportunity to sort of put right a few things, because as I say, I was never really that happy with it. I've mentioned when you're in bands and you look down at the set list while you're playing a song and you look at what's coming up, and if you like the song that's coming up, it makes you feel really good. When I saw this one on the set list, I remember thinking, oh God, we've got to play that piece of shit. There you go. It is what it is. But it's certainly better now, I think, than it ever was before.
Really selling it to everyone now.
No.
Everyone can't wait to hear it at the end now.
But as you said, before we started recording this podcast, I did talk about this and about the fact that I didn't like it. And you did say at that time that at least we can talk about that and talk about the fact that we're actually going to do it again and talk about the reason why you didn't like it. Well, as I say, it was just a bit like Daryl Hall and John Oates. Hall and Oates were a duo back then, if anybody remembers those guys. They were sort of soul, Blue-Eyed Soul, because they were white guys, but they were from Philadelphia. So I got the impression that at least they were sort of semi-legit, by being sort of, from America, but
not from Birmingham,
not from West Bromwich, so trying to do this kind of genre for me felt a bit strange and felt a bit of a cheat. But at least this version of it, we've had a chance to sort of put some of it right anyway.
And I think that's what a lot of this is about, is revisiting things, 30 years later, taking something that you did as nearly kids. We were children almost back then, well, in our 20s. And then picking it up, literally picking up again all that time. And the person you've become, the person, the husband, the father, the grown-up, the person that's worked and lived and done so many things, had so many experiences, picking the same thing up and seeing what you do with it now and how you change it.
I certainly feel better about it now, but I still don't like the song. I like the version that we've done. And I think it's okay. It'd be nice to hear what people think, you know.
And I really like it. And this is interesting. This fascinates me, this idea of how two people can see the same thing. It's the same object, you know. It's like this glass that I'm holding now with my Vimto in it. Today's podcast was brought to you by Vimto, our sponsor. No, we both can see the same thing. It's the same object, but we both have a different attitude towards it. And you don't like this song, and yet it's the same song I hear with my ears, and I love it, and I really, really like it, and I've always liked it. I think it's a great song.
We've just put the backing vocals on, which featured you on it, and as soon as that, this is quite fascinating because as soon as we did that, it made it sound a bit better for me. And I think it's always been the case. Every time I play something, every time we've ever played something, and it's not mine, I always feel better when it's not mine somehow. I don't quite understand why that is. I have no idea, because you would think it would be the opposite. But I do enjoy playing songs that were by you and by Peter, you know, and by other people, other writers. I've always enjoyed that more. I don't quite understand why that is. I don't think it's just being precious about your own stuff or something. I just feel like the pressure is on.
I think it's a lot about pressure. I think it's a lot about taking the pressure up, and someone else is involved. The pressure is somehow shared and halved or whatever, and someone else is on it, singing on it, playing on it, involved in the production of it, even co-writing it maybe, like we'd done Peter and Jane in episode 6. That was last time. And that was a shared song. And there's something about a shared thing where you go, you know what, the pressure's not on me. I've handed over half of this, and so I feel really good about it. And you can enjoy it more. You're just more relaxed with it. And I think that's the same. If, you know, someone contributes to it, even just doing some backing vocals and playing the guitar on it and doing the things that I did and sharing it, it just helps. But I really like it. So we're genuinely fascinated for people to hear this, because I think people will really like this song. I think it comes across as a very, very complete, tuneful, confident song. So I'll be, you know, thanks for all those people that are commenting. We love the comments, so please keep the comments coming in Spotify or wherever you comment, or on social media. We're on TikTok now, Tim. I know. That's amazing, isn't it? Who'd have thought it? Some 60-year-old guys would be on TikTok. Don't even understand it. We have to talk to our children about how to use TikTok. But we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on the gram, as the kids say. So comment on that. You know, you can send us messages directly on there, or in the Spotify app, or however. But so it'd be great to know what you think about this song. We're not, you know, not after your undying praise or anything, but just literally what you think. You know, is it a good version? Is it not a good version?
We've just had a couple of comments actually, one of which was one that we've been waiting for a while actually, which is from Peter Cadleback, who used to be the lead singer of Boat Thief, one of the bands that we often mention here, who's living in Canada at the moment, and he's been there for so many years now, 20 odd years I think. And he constantly tours around with bands, with artists around the world. But he was having a break, and he had time to listen to the podcast, and he got back to us with some really positive stuff, and which is lovely to hear. You know, because he features so heavily in all this, which is great.
Yeah, he was saying how strange it is hearing about himself in that third person, which it must be. Like, he's such a big part of the story, and then he's hearing two people talk about him, and so, you know. It's great.
And also Mike Hindle, who is a friend of ours. I used to be in a band with him, Everett Man Jack, before Boat Thief. Yeah, and apparently he's in China now, and he was saying that he's listening from China, which is fantastic. You know, I love that.
And we're still stuck here in the Lake District.
It's worse places to be stuck.
There's worse, but no, I said that.
And talking about the Lake District, let's go right back again to when Martin, who we talked about in the last episode, who became our manager, but in the early days, and he started to talk to us about, he was always talking about the future, always talking about, it's all very well what we're doing now, but this is what we're going to be doing. And then one day he said, right, the next project we're going to do is the Edinburgh Festival. Do you remember that? What did you think when he said that?
Talking about a band doing the Edinburgh Festival didn't feel like a thing that a band did. Yeah. It was, you know, if we were a troupe of, you know, improvisational comedians, or we had some little show, and we all wore boiler suits and, did a modern day version of Midsummer Night's Dream, then fine.
That sounds quite good.
Well, we'll do that in a future podcast. But yeah, it was like, no, bands don't do, but bands do that. There's lots of music at Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and it was a great move, really, because it was a way of almost immersing us in a daily or several times a day show.
Yeah.
And playing to lots of people in a short space of time and really honing our craft,
it's
as
probably,
they say.
It's probably worth mentioning what he put in place. So he rented us a venue, and this is what I guess everybody does.
Yeah.
Rents a venue for a week, or I think the Fringe Festival is on for 2 weeks, but we just did a week. Both times that we did a week, and you would rent a venue in a building in Edinburgh, in the city centre somewhere, and you would have a bunch of gigs there. Sometimes you would have evening gigs, sometimes you would have lunchtime gigs. I seem to remember we had both. We had lunchtime and evening gigs. And then in between those times, you've got to try to somehow impress people enough to buy tickets to come and see you. And the way that we would do it would be busking, literally busking, which was quite interesting in itself, because we'd never done that before. So, I mean, I think Pete
used to busk, and I had busked once or twice with Pete down by Windermere, by the lake, a Bowness on Windermere, where the steamers go from, and all the tourists hang out. Once or twice, but Pete used to do a lot of busking.
But I'd never done that, and of course, playing the bass in Boat Thief made it very difficult. So I had to sort of get a battery-operated amplifier, which we would cart around the city doing our stuff. And we would just set up wherever we could. Usually it was down by the Mound, which is just off Princes Street down there, which we would do. Actually, the second time with it, the following year, now, thinking about what years these were, was it 90 and 91?
I think so, 1991, yeah. 91, 92.
Yeah, the first time it was just the three of us, so before we had Thomas, the drummer, and we just did. We would busk all over the place. And I remember Martin had this brainwave one day. He said, hey, listen, there are queues outside the Fringe office where people queue up every day to buy their tickets. He said, wouldn't it be great if we did this guerrilla-style kind of busking session just there, where people are sort of waiting and waiting around and wondering what they were going to see.
They're literally in the queue,
wondering what to book.
Well, they probably know what they're about to book, and we're hoping that they'll change their mind and book us, or book an additional ticket to see us, literally as they're queuing up, on the Royal Mile.
And I remember right outside the office, there was this little sort of courtyard just off the Royal Mile, behind the Fringe office, which I don't even think is there anymore. I'm not even sure. And he just said, right, just get in here. And we said, well, haven't we got to ask somebody? He said, no, just get in, just get in, put your stuff up and get off you go. So we did. And it worked a treat.
It did. People bought tickets and came to see us.
I mean, even that in itself, every single day he would ring the office to find out how many tickets had been sold for our lunchtime sessions and for our evening shows as well. And that was great. That was, hey lads, there's 12 people coming to this one. And we'd go, oh God. He said, but yesterday there was only 8. So he always a curve going upwards sort of bloke, wasn't he? The graph is getting better.
The thing is, I remember from Edinburgh, as well as the busking was great. I really enjoyed the busking, because there was something really immediate about having to gather a crowd and people literally starting to turn around and walk towards you. And at one point when we did that just by the museum there on the Mound, there were loads of people just coming towards us and creating a really, because we actually plugged in and actually had a little PA system. And
that was the second year.
That was the second year. Well, we had drums and everything. We had we had a name on the bass drum, and people could see who we were a bit more.
Martin had got a generator from somewhere.
Got a generator, and we had a full PA system. And we'd be there, and we'd have to wait. There'd be a pecking order, wouldn't there? What you could do, you couldn't just plug in and play, because there had to be respect for the other people, the other buskers. And there was a guy, I'd love to remember his name, a fantastic physical comedian, sort of, I suppose you'd call him a juggler and a street performer. Yeah. And he played before us. And when his set was finished, he kind of gave us the nod, and we were allowed to play, but you couldn't play over anyone else if they had their little slot. And not that we did it officially, we never got a permit or anything.
But it was a kind of
local respect thing. And that guy was there. I mean, he was fantastic. And I saw him a few times in London as well, down at Covent Garden.
Yeah.
And he'd just do some great things. He had this brilliant thing where he'd have this, it looked like a backpack that he'd clip onto a small toddler that walked past. You probably couldn't do it now. But some toddler would walk across his pathway whilst he was entertaining, and he'd quickly clip this backpack on, and then start using a remote control, miming that he was using that he was remotely controlling this child, and he'd physically make it look like he was making the child go where he wanted it to go. Or he'd do the same with a seagull. A seagull would swoop down, and he'd get this remote control out and pretend he's controlling the seagull, and it was hysterical.
Do you know, Eddie Izzard started off doing this, and he used to do the same thing. He used to do it in Covent Garden and Edinburgh Festival, doing exactly the same type of thing. You can imagine him being fantastic, I think.
And we saw some good acts as well. Acts.
Yeah,
I hate that
we
word. We went to see, you and I went to see the funniest thing I have ever experienced in my life. And this is the first year.
Yes, yeah, he won the Perrier that year. He's talking about Frank Skinner.
Frank Skinner.
Yeah.
So you and I don't know why the rest of the band didn't go, but we went, and it was a tiny little
black space,
little student bar or something, and there were probably 30 people in there, with chairs, just put out a row of chairs. Yeah. And this guy came on we'd never really heard of. Frank Skinner came on.
Well, because he was from West Bromwich, I'd heard of him.
You'd heard of him. Yeah. And I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes in, I remember us having to be literally lying down.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him to stop. I remember screaming for him to stop because I was hurting. So, and that is true. I mean, I wasn't.
I was kneeling down, crying.
We were crying. It was so funny, and he won the Perrier Award that year.
Yeah, fantastic.
Just playing to 30 people twice a day or whatever. And that was the great thing about it. Just this big mashup of fantastic stuff going on in every venue and no one's actually been to the Edinburgh Festival, Fringe Festival that's listening to this. You probably can't imagine it. Every space, whether it's a church hall, whether it's a youth club somewhere, or even shops and stuff, give over their space and people hire them. So everyone's putting on something, some bizarre thing.
That first year, our venue, our two rooms that we were playing were in what they call the Acoustic Music Centre, which was in Chambers Street, and I don't know what that is, what that building is during the day. I don't know, or during the time outside of the festival. I don't, because it'll be some kind of government building or something. I don't know, local council building.
It had a stage in it. So it was a proper stage. So it must be some kind of, I don't know, it must be some entertainment thing. It's
something else that I really loved as well about that particular. I mean, it was such a thrill to be doing it, because none of us knew what we were expecting except for Martin. He sort of knew what it was we were going to be doing. And this is what you're doing, lads. This is what you've got to do today. This is what you've got to play here today. You've got to do that. Then we're promoting this, we're promoting that. And then there was another thing that he landed on us one day, very early on, and he just said, late at night, at sort of midnight or something, when you've done all your shows, there's something called the Fringe Club. And we said, what's that then? And he said, and it's part of the university, Teviot House, part of the university. And it was this bear pit of a venue where you play in this tiny little bar, but it's absolutely packed full of people that have been out and about all day, and they come in there to have a late drink, just to slag off and barrack anybody that comes onto that stage. And people get booed off. I mean, that tended to be, that's what it became. That was its raison d'etre, just to be this kind of bear pit that you could shout at the act on the, so people would come in, get tanked up, and just shout at people, throw things at, boo them off stage. And we were, should we say, combative? We were kind of, right, you ain't going to do that to us. And we saw all these people getting booed off and things. And then we thought, right, well, obviously we were shitting ourselves. But we went on there, and there was three of us. And you've described how we used to be when there was three of us. We were foot-stamping, baudy, kind of, rabble-rousing kind of trio that we were. And we had this attitude where we weren't taking any prisoners, and we weren't going to get booed off. I mean, Peter, even in small little pubs that we'd play, quiet little places in the Lake District, was very combative. But in that situation, he became an absolute rabid animal. The three of us did. And it was great, because they loved us. And thankfully, they took to us.
We played there most nights, I seem to remember. And you'd have 10-minute slots, so they'd get through so many acts, so many bands and whoever else. And we would just go on and play 3 songs, like
Yeah.
but just hit people to really fast, really big,
Guerrilla
really
tactics,
yeah,
yeah,
and then get off really quick and,
Yeah.
and just
Quick
then go and,
while you're ahead,
then go and sit down and then shout at the other bands after us.
And God, there's so many stories, so many little stories that can only mean something to us and not to anybody else. But there was this one particular band called Rock, Salt and Nails, if you remember
them, yeah.
And I think they are still going now. I think they were from Shetland.
They were. Well, remembered.
This sort of, once again, sort of, rousing kind of folky type rock thing. And they were great. I used to love them. And then one night, we came onto that stage and everybody had gone crazy and booed the people off before us. And we thought, oh, Christ, here we go. I wonder if we can do it as well as we did the last night, hopefully, fingers crossed. And they were sat right in front of us. And I thought, at least Rock, Salt and Nails are here. They'll be on our side, surely. And almost immediately they started taking a piss and shouting at us. I thought, oh, God, no. It was a real kick in the nuts. It really was for me, because I thought, I really wanted you guys to like us. We'd seen them loads of times, but I don't think they'd seen us. Anyway, yeah, we did okay. And that was a great way. Another one of these Martin ideas, he knew that we'd be okay in that situation. And once again, we thought, oh, God, I hope you're right, mate.
And you learn so much in that space of time because you're playing an awful lot to a lot of people who need persuading very quickly because they've chosen their 2 or 3 shows for that day or that week. And they're going, impress me. I'm here. This is my holiday. I'm away in Edinburgh. I want to see some really great stuff. You've got to. So we learn how to entertain quickly and please people as quickly as possible. Be as magnetic and as energetic as we could be, day in, day out for quite a long period of time. And then stay up late, and sleep what you can, then get up and do it all again. Busk for the best part of the day so you could sell tickets. And then play another couple of shows that night or that afternoon and night.
Last week I was just sorting some stuff out in the attic and I found these folders of stuff and so much of it was Martin's stuff, Martin's managerial stuff. And he had lots of cuttings, like newspaper cuttings. And he had some from the Edinburgh festivals, from the Scotsman. And there's some fantastic reviews. Yeah, some great reviews. And they sort of got it. They understood. And quite often when you're in a band, you don't know how you're perceived. It's very difficult to know what people are seeing because you're obviously never able to see it. And I have to say, it does age us an awful lot here. But back in those days, you didn't have handheld cameras like people have now. And there is no footage of us. There is literally no footage of us at all, anywhere. And it would have been lovely to see. Anyway, the Scotsman guy, he definitely got it, which was a real thrill for us. It was for me, anyway.
Yeah, amazing time. Both the 2 years we played, fantastic learning curve.
Yeah,
and we would never have done it. We'd never have even thought of doing it. It takes someone else. It takes that manager. That other person that's slightly outside the band person to go, I know what I can do with you. I know what you should be doing. You should be putting yourself here and doing this. And we would not in a million years have gone, let's go to Edinburgh and play. We'd have just gone, we just want to play a big venue in London. We want to, And he knew that was the way to get there. He knew that we needed practice. He knew that we needed that kind of regular exposure to crowds that were slightly hostile. We go back to, again, not that we're in any way trying to compare ourselves. I've said that before with the Beatles, but obviously Beatles, huge influence in our lives. We're both Beatles.
Okay.
Yeah, that band. We're both massive kind of students of the Beatles, but they had their Hamburg years, and they did it obviously for a lot longer, but it's what made them, able to play and entertain and understand what a good tune was, what entertained, what didn't entertain. And for us, those several weeks over 2 years in Edinburgh did that to a much smaller degree to us.
But it was definitely that kind of, you're just playing for your lives, you felt like you were playing for your life, especially down at the Mound. But that second year when we were busking with a full PA in front of as many people as, there's hundreds.
There
and
were
hundreds
hundreds
of people.
gathering, yeah.
that was lovely, being on the steps of that Georgian building there. Is it Georgian or Romanesque type building?
To be in the middle of Edinburgh, looking around you going, I'm in one of my favourite cities, playing in the open air to a load of people who are just gathering because they can hear us and they just want to stand and listen to it. And it's, it was great.
And Martin would be there just giving leaflets out.
And Gary, our
Gary
road manager and friend. So
I remember picking Gary up. I mean, I think it might have been the second year, but he literally just got back from Thailand on his honeymoon. He'd literally come back off his honeymoon.
Wow.
And he came straight up by train up to Edinburgh, and we picked him up from the station. That was great. Having him up there as well.
Yeah, we needed him. That was like
That second year, Martin rented us a lovely flat down in Murrayfield. Which was great. This beautiful flat, and we had a separate garage. Whoever owned that flat, the guy that owned, you know what's coming.
I know what's coming now.
The guy that owned the flat was a lovely guy, sort of an older fella, and he lived around the corner in a bungalow, and we had the use of his garage to store all our stuff. So, I mean, we would be in there in the morning getting the stuff out and putting it into our van, and then in the early hours of the morning, we would be there again, and he'd be fine about getting up and coming out and in his dressing gown. Talking.
So he was so the first time we met him when we turned up at his house to store all our kit in his garage, he came to the front door, very well-to-do middle class Scottish guy with his wife and a pipe. Probably had a pipe and slippers, but that's my kind of take on him. That kind of guy. And he came to the door, and he was obviously bemused by the fact he was happy to rent his place out. Bemused by these scruffy English lads that had come up to play at the Edinburgh Festival, which he wasn't a big fan of. Do you remember what he said when he opened the door? He said, "I'm not a big fan of the Edinburgh Festival." Yeah. What did he say to us?
Do you actually say this?
Yeah, I want you to actually say it.
He just said it's all, it's things I don't really understand, like big fat lesbians talking about clitorises.
That is literally what he said to us, and we were all stood there, like 5 or 6 of us, just trying to suppress mirth. Absolutely, that he just said this thing.
Nice to him
because basically he got it right. That is ostensibly what the entire Fringe Festival that year was probably about, or something variations on that theme.
Just going back to the first year, because that was the second year when Martin had rented us this flat. The first year there were 3 of us, and we were just camping, weren't we? Just outside.
Yeah, we had a caravan, which was Martin's parents' caravan.
You and Peter shared the caravan.
Yeah, you got the tent.
I was just the bass player.
You got a little dome tent. We kept coming out and checking on you, passing little bowls of food that we'd made, little pasta into the little first flap of the tent, going, "There you go, Tim."
Great.
Like a dog outside the kennel. Why did we put you? I'm sure there was room inside, but you hadn't made it then.
I wasn't a permanent member. And the first time we were there, when we were just the 3 of us, Martin had arranged this thing on the first Sunday before the festival actually officially starts. The thing called the Fringe Sunday
in Holyrood Park.
Down by the Palace, yeah. And we were playing. So this is our first gig up in Edinburgh, and we were playing this massive marquee. In fact, somebody said, "You're playing in a tent," and I'm just thinking,
I'm back in the tent again.
Bloody tents.
Tim and his tents.
And so I thought, it'll just be a little tent. When we got there, it was bloody enormous.
Like a big top.
Massive thing. And then there's this stage at the end, and they said, "Come on, then get yourself set up." So we did. And then when we started playing, it literally filled up. And I thought, this is incredible. I mean, up to then, that was the biggest we'd never played to that many people.
I don't think so, no.
And it was wonderful. And I think that really kick-started us, once again it was Martin's, we thought, playing in a bloody tent in a field, come on Martin, we're better than that.
There's moments you remember that you'll remember forever, and you think, if I've got that memory in my head, I can die happy, because that memory, and I'm sure everyone's got memories like this, but just I can still smell, taste, feel totally sum up that us being on that stage in this big tent there in this beautiful park below Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, middle of Edinburgh, at the beginning of this big adventure, and this huge tent full of people just filling up, and we're there just singing our songs and doing our harmonies together, going, I can't think of a better thing to do with my life. I want to do this forever, or at least I want this memory to last. And that memory has lasted forever. And it's just one of those joyous moments. You're thinking, this is us doing this. This is just us three making the noise that we make, singing the notes that we like to sing in harmony to each other, and stamping our feet and having a good time. And the songs that we wrote about our life and the stuff we love. And everyone's there just with their pints in hand, swaying and stamping their feet, and you're going, "This is it. This is why people do music. This is why people."
As the bass player, you quite often, as bass players do, tend to sort of lig around at the back,
in a tent.
So you're on the stage, and if you have too many people up front, it gets a bit confusing. So normally the bass player goes at the back, and you've got the two good-looking fellas at the front doing their stuff. And I have to say, during the times, in Boat Thief, you've got you and Peter at the front there doing your stuff. And I often got that feeling you've just been talking about, which is, how can this get any better? And Martin would constantly, obviously, be talking to us about the next stage all the time. But I loved the stage we were at. Every single time he would talk about what we're going to do next. Like any business manager, if you like. They've got to be talking about the stuff you're going to be doing next. Yeah, this is great, but, this is what we're doing next. We're coming from here. We're going to play in London, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. We're going on tour. And so, and I would often think that. I'd often think, this is great. I love this, and I want to take it all in right now and enjoy it. And I did. I loved it so much.
And one thing I want to talk about more at some stage, maybe we'll do a whole episode on it or something, but again, it's that notion of how can things get better, and will they get better? And if you're big and famous and successful, how is that better than the journey that you were on to get there? There's something really interesting about going, that was probably the best time. We don't know the future. We don't know what we would have been like being successful, in inverted commas, and big and wealthy and living in big houses or whatever it might have led to, if it had led to that at all. But I can't imagine being happier than that. And it would be different. And would we have looked back in our ivory towers and big castles on the south coast of France and looked back and gone, actually, no, that was better, or would we be happier then? So I'd really want to explore that idea of what's the best time. Can you successfully say that was better than that? This is better than that. I don't know where I'm going with that now. I'm rambling, but
we were just talking about Martin always thinking about the next thing. I often got we'd have little, I wouldn't say arguments, but I would often say to him, what about now? What about this? And it was always the next thing, always the next thing.
Well, the thing about music, and probably any career really, is you mark it in certain ways. So in music, we would have marked success, and Martin would have been marking success as in album sales and ticket sales. So the more tickets you sell, the bigger venue you're at. You've got to play the O2, you've got to play, Wembley Stadium. You've got to, that's when you're selling big tickets. You've got to have platinum albums. You've got to be on the radio with the biggest audience, so Radio 1 or whatever that might be. And it's always about the numbers and therefore the money that you're making. But really, I couldn't imagine there being a better moment than being in that tent or being at the Fringe Festival.
Yeah, I don't think we thought about it. I think as soon as Martin came along and started to be, it was obvious to us that he knew what he was doing, which wouldn't have been very long, a couple of months, after we first started working with him. We kind of left him to make all the decisions like that and to think that way. We just wrote songs and played them, and he did all that. I've just, as I say, I was looking through the attic at some old stuff, and there was an old newsletter. We used to have this Boat Thief newsletter.
The Engine Room.
The Engine Room, yeah. Obviously, this is pre-internet, so we were communicating with all our, what we laughingly call fans, but lots of them. And Martin would send out these leaflets and for the gigs and stickers and posters and T-shirts and information in the form of this newsletter. And he did this interview in the newsletter. And one of the questions, there was several questions we were all asked whenever it was our turn to do it. And one of them was, what's your ambition? And he said, to see Boat Thief on MTV. See, you laugh about it, and obviously it is laughable because
didn't do it.
Because that never happened, yeah. But that's him, and that's how he thought.
Yeah. Well, he could see that. I mean, and that's why he was, he wasn't doing it for, the love of it necessarily. He was doing it because he saw that as a career. He thought this is going to be and that, which is good, because I don't think you want a manager that's going, oh, I'm just enjoying this. It's quite nice, because that's never going to get you anywhere. Yeah. But he saw it as a business, I guess, and that's why he was after the numbers. That's why he wanted to play in front of bigger crowds and everything. So, and we didn't have to think about that, which is great, because those two things don't go together. Making art and making music doesn't go together with the financial side.
There's no doubt that every successful band has to. They can't rely on the fact that they're a good bunch of lads who get on well and write a few tunes and sing well and whatever. We now know that is, I would say not even half of it. It's not even half of it. How many bands do we know that are massive who are bloody awful, but they've got some kind of commercially guided and oriented guy in the background, guy or lady in the background that knows exactly what it is that they need to be doing far better than they do. And very, very soon, as I say, very soon after Martin became part of what we would call our unit, I guess, our circle of trust. He was that guy, the guy that we knew that we didn't even have to think about any of that. He would just tell us what we were doing next, which I loved. I loved it. Miss him so much.
Yeah, it'd be. It would have been so. If only we could fast forward and look what we could have been with Martin. Be really interesting. Not that I would have necessarily said it would be better than what we were doing, but it'd just be really, really interesting to see what he could have made of us and what ideas he would have had, because he was an ideas person. He was literally the very essence of the word entrepreneur. I mean, I hate that word, but he literally was that. He was an idea. He would come in and go, had an idea. And you'd go, what? And it would be a crazy one, but a brilliant one. And he was doing that. You could see his mind working. You could almost hear his mind going to all these lateral places and weird places with ideas, which just freed us up to just go, well, we'll just write songs then. We'll just sing. We'll just sing and strum, and we'll be happy doing that as long as you're steering the ship, and coming up with these interesting ideas. It would be so fascinating to know what he would have done, and as well. And he was an amazing business. Had his own business, and with his partner Guy and
Mark, and I think those guys. If you were to talk to them about Martin, he was just one of these guys that he affects everybody. And literally the whole room lit up. When he walked in. Anyway, yeah, good guy. Right, well, we're getting towards the stage where we're going to go, slipping down the slope towards that song, The Things You Said in Bed.
We're coming into land. So the song that you don't particularly like, but I absolutely like. I think I make up for your dislike with all my like.
You do.
Yeah. We're basically... I'm making up for you, but I'm really curious to see what people think of this song. I enjoyed playing it again. I enjoyed thinking about the guitar part and how we can play something a little bit differently. And because I think we just played this quite straight, just strummed it, just occasional strums, and it was quite spacious. And this one's a bit more filled. There's a little bit more of a continuous rhythmic guitar part going, and you played drums on this as well, which is something. So yeah, brilliantly, and yeah,
that's a joke. I'm rubbish at playing the drums. As any drummers that I work with who are listening to this will know. But
the point is, we're doing all this ourselves. We're not bringing in anyone else, and we don't. We're purposefully just going. Let's see what we can do with this ourselves. In a short space of time, just set the stuff up, do it all ourselves. So all the instruments, and whether we may or may not bring someone else in here and there in the future, guest appearances, I don't know, but we're doing it all ourselves to see if we can reinvent this. And you set the drums up in your room, in your studio, and played these live. So they're not drum tracks, they're not so they're not loops or samples or anything like this. It's a real little tatty old drum kit of yours that you hit in
bits.
time, and
vaguely in time.
So yeah, I'd be really curious of what you think of this one. If you can comment on, again, we're not after your sort of, oh yes, it's brilliant, but just like, no, do you like it? Does it work? Does it not work? Is it better than last week, the one, or the week before, or whatever? And which ones your favourites are, really? Because I'll
tell you what I just want to mention before we finish this one is one of the things that we were frightened of, really, when we first started touring, was when we were going to be playing to people that we didn't know, and we didn't know if there were, lots of people would want to come and see us when we played, because obviously when you're playing locally to your friends and your family and people who know you, you kind of you know that if you play at this venue, you're going to be able to fill it because you blah blah blah. But when you play in other places that you'd ever played before, there's a risk factor, and it's similar with this podcast actually, because there's no doubt that we love having so many people that we know listening to this. It's great. But we love lots of other people as well. We're wondering if it's in any way interesting to other people that we don't know. So if anybody's listening to this and thinks that they could share it to their friends and recommend this to their friends, that would be just great.
Yeah, we were thinking of some kind of marketing incentive that people do. If you were a brand, you'd say 10% off your next purchase if you recommend us to a friend. But we can't do that. We can't give you 10% off anything. Or we could come and play a song at your kid's party or something like that. Which no, we won't do that. That would be horrible. We'd scare the kids. Anyway, that's enough rambling, and we're going to play you out with the things we said on a podcast. The things we said in bed.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
When all the shouting's been done and all the flinging's been flung, when every thought of me has slipped from your mind and I'll believe in you, when every word that you said just disappears from your head, when every thought of you has slipped from my mind, and then this is what we'll do. And I think it's a safe bet that you will just forget, that you will just forget every word that you said in bed. When all the lying's been done and all the crying's been done, when we know we've reached the bitterest end, I'll remember you as someone who could not see what you imagine it's like to be me. You cross that borderline that stretches away, I guess I crossed it too, and I think it's a safe bet that you will just forget, that you will just forget every word that you said in bed. Drag me down to a fraction of what was before. Please, won't you talk no more? Well, I think it's a safe bet that you will just forget, that you will just forget every word that you said in bed. You and me were inseparable, and you said in bed. The things you said in bed. The things you said in bed. The things you said in bed.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. And if you could like and subscribe or even leave a review, that would be just brilliant. Anyway, see you again soon. Bye.